The way Anselm put it, the argument went something like this: God is by definition the being than which none greater can be conceived. Now, a being is greater if it actually exists than if it doesn't exist. So suppose the being than which none greater can be conceived didn't exist. Then we could conceive a greater one which was just like that being, but really existed. So it must be that the being than which none greater can be conceived exists. That particular way of putting it, Anselm's way, doesn't really work, I would say, because it suggests that you could compare a thing that didn't exist with a thing that did with respect to greatness. But the fact is there aren't any things that don't exist. I mean, all the things there are exist. So you can't really compare a non-existent thing with a thing that exists. But now you can put this argument in terms of possible worlds instead. So you can say, it's possible that there be a greatest possible being. And one initially thinks, well, yeah, I guess maybe there could be. A greatest possible being, what would such a being be like? Well, it would have to be a being that's omniscient and omnipotent and wholly good, maybe some other things as well. And if it's a greatest possible being, it would have to be such that it isn't merely that way in actuality, but would have been that way had things been different. So it would have to have these properties, but have them essentially, and in fact have them necessarily, that is, have them in every possible world. A possible world, first of all, is a way things could have been. Things could have been different in lots of ways. For example, you and I might not have been talking here together now. And a possible world is a way things could have been, a total way things could have been. So it says something about everything, you know. And one of the ways things could have been is the way things actually are. That's the actual world. Well, possible worlds help us think about what it is for a proposition to be necessary, or for an object to have a property essentially or necessarily. So a proposition is necessary just if it's true in every possible world. So suppose it's possible that there is a greatest possible being. That means that in some possible world, there is a greatest possible being, right? Now, in that possible world in which there is a greatest possible being, the following proposition is necessary. There is a being who exists in every possible world and is omnipotent and omniscient and the like in every possible world. In that world, that's necessary. But what's necessary doesn't vary from possible world to possible world. The very same things are necessary in all the possible worlds. The very same things are possible too in all the possible worlds. Therefore, that means that in every possible world, it's necessary that there is a being that has these properties and has them essentially. And if it's true in every possible world, then it's true in the actual world. So the fact is, it's necessary that there is a being who is omnipotent, omniscient, and wholly good in every possible world. And that's God.
This you've defined as the modal ontological argument. And how has that fared over the years?
Unlike the original, there aren't any logical problems with it. It actually does work. So if you believe the premise, if you believe it's possible that there is a greatest possible being, you're committed to there being a greatest possible being. I think there is general agreement on that. Where the argument has been criticized is that the distance between premise and conclusion is not all that great. I mean, once you see how this works, once you see how possibility and necessity works, then you're going to ask, if you don't like the conclusion, you're going to say to yourself, well, I mean, why do I have to say it's possible that there is a greatest possible being? Maybe that's impossible. If you do think it's possible that there be something like God as traditionally conceived of, then you're committed to there actually being such a thing.